Aw, man, this stall is out of toilet paper. I hate when this happens.
Has this happened to you? Do you find yourself stranded in a public bathroom without toilet paper? These situations can be tricky and very frustrating, leaving you feeling helpless and having to come up with outlandish ideas to alleviate your potty predicament. Now you never have to worry about this happening to you thanks to TP Tie. TP Tie is a new necktie that also acts as an emergency toilet paper for when you're all out of options. Just floss your cheeks like you floss your teeth, and then you wash your TP Tie in the sink. TP Tie dries almost instantly. It's antibacterial and doesn't emit any smell, so you can get right back to work with confidence.
Thanks, TP Tie.
And if you order within the next 10 minutes, we'll throw in a second TP Tie for free. TP Tie. We got your back, side.
This week on Two Dudes in LA, the dudes invite improv comedy legend Paul Vaillancourt to the show for a rousing discussion about improv comedy. Then, Paul shares his story and discusses the rise and fall of the acclaimed I.O. Theater and, of course, the future of improv comedy. The dudes then introduce Paul to their favorite segment, Dontchu Dare Laugh. Hilarity ensues, and then Paul answers questions submitted by you, dear listener, so trust me when I say that this episode is jam-packed with delightfully riveting content, so get ready, improv comedy fans, you're not going to want to miss this.
All right. Am I coming in clear? I said, am I coming in clear? Name
I
that
hear
movie.
you.
Name that movie, Shaun. No? Oh, come on.
Is it a Mel Brooks?
No, but it's kind of in that era. It's about chocolate and a factory.
Willy Wonka, yeah.
Yeah, because it's when he gets shrunk into the TV. That's what we like to talk about, is old references. You know, that's us. It's me, it's your boy, Watson. I'm really excited for today's episode, guys, if you can't tell. Because when I throw out, anything in the 60s, was it 60s or 70s era? See, now I'm starting to look like a ridiculous person. I get excited. Shaun, are you excited for today's episode?
Yes, I've been looking forward to this episode for a while now, ever since we brought it up and then we hinted at it last week a little bit.
Yeah.
Played a little sound clip, so
ready to go. But before we get to that, we always like to ask Shaun, how was your week?
It was good. It was a good week. My mom came out to visit from Utah.
Nice.
She teaches, she's been a dispatcher her whole life, and then she got on with the hospital at the U of U, and so she dispatches the planes and helicopters and stuff. So she
University of Utah, just in case you guys don't know.
So she teaches people how to do air control and stuff.
Okay.
And so Saturday I took her to Amoeba Music, and
Dope,
she got herself a Fleetwood Mac and a Def Leppard.
Nice, that's awesome.
Vinyl.
And then you took her to the show, right?
Well, then we went to Trejo's Cantina.
Nice.
So for everyone that hasn't been to LA, Danny Trejo, the Machete, he's got a few locations out here. Trejo's Cantina, Tacos, and Trejo's Coffee and Donuts, and maybe more, I don't know, but I took her to there, and then he showed up with his crew.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he walked in. It looked like the mob. They were all wearing black trench coats.
All carrying machetes.
But he was super nice. He walked around to everyone, shook their hands, was taking pictures. So that was her first celebrity encounter for this trip. It was pretty cool. And then last night we went to the Comedy Store and we saw Dane Cook.
Nice.
So that was cool.
That's cool.
This was an eventful weekend.
That's fun.
And then she cleaned my place.
As moms do. That's nice of her.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Did you get to take her to Grand Central Market though?
No, I took her to the farmer's market that I keep telling you about.
Okay, you gotta take me to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys, that's another big staple, Grand Central Market. So Grand Central Market. Excuse me.
Downtown, yeah.
My week, Shaun, thanks for asking, was pretty fun. 2 days ago, I got to go to the Lantern Festival, which was really awesome, and got to learn all about Chinese culture, and they had the dragons and these dancers and the amazing food.
And this was date number 2, right?
Okay, it might have been a day that I was at. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then we got to and she speaks Chinese, and so
wow.
she was kind of became my tour guide, and it was a lot of fun. And then ate really good food in Chinatown. So,
Sweet.
but enough about us. Come on, we're not.
We've
the
got a
real
lot
reason.
to get into today.
Yeah, we're not the real reason why some of you might be here. But we have some really fun stuff. As we talked about last episode, IO, one of my theaters I wanted to go to since I was 15, unfortunately closed down, and we have a awesome guest here. But before we get to that, I went to that, like we played this last time, and we showed you guys some I took and did interviews at the final night, and so we played a little clip for you last time, but now we have the full interviews that we're going to show you right now, or listen to right now.
It'll give everyone context to the situation and also introduce our guest as well.
Perfect. So let's do it. How long have you been here at IO West?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a preamble up to that answer. So I moved to LA 3 years ago. Could that be right? Let's just say that's right. And I moved here from New York for acting. And I recognized when I was going to auditions, more so here in LA than in than New York, that they want to see improv on your resume. So that just put my radar up to look for improv places, and a friend of mine was going here, so he turned me on to it. And gosh, I think I've been here maybe a year, maybe year and a half. I don't even remember.
What are we celebrating, or I guess mourning? I'm not really sure how to put it.
I was just talking to a friend about this place right now and what's going on, and I think people process transition and change different ways. Some people are angry, some people are in tears, some people are celebrating. So there's a lot of energies going around tonight, and I think the most predominant feeling is, and it's not unusual to have this right at this point in this juncture, that somehow this community will stick together, and we'll see where it goes next. You know, Paul announced tonight that he's starting a new company.
So cool. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so that certainly is going to help. But it's a transition. It's a change. And some people, I'm sure, are going to drift away from the community and find, maybe a community in improv, or maybe in stand-up, or maybe in theater, or wherever.
Can we still be friends?
We never were. So
Oh, ow.
of course we can.
What's happening right now? What is that music they're hearing?
So the music that everybody's hearing is music that other people selected on my tech computer for their high school fucking prom dance funeral of this theater.
That sums you up perfectly, man. Dylan's a guy who came in. He's our tech guy. I was a tech guy, but he came in with just this fire and was really strong on helping this theater become something. And then they decided to close it. So how were your personal thoughts when you heard you put so much hard work into this and it was closing?
I was like, well, at least I didn't start 10 Junes ago. I just started last June. I've worked at several theaters, and I was a tech director at a theater up in San Francisco for a short while. And so I've seen a lot of really poor theaters, and I guess it was still a surprise that this one was taken down. But as far as my blood, sweat, and tears, I don't feel like I don't know. It's the blood, sweat, and tears are not on the forefront of my oven right now, or on the front burner of my oven right now. It's more people.
So how long have you been affiliated with IO West?
Since 2011.
Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome. So, what was your journey? Intern, teacher, what have you been into?
Yeah, before I even signed up for a class, I was able to get an internship.
Awesome.
So then I was able to take all the classes, one level twice over, because one of the teachers is so great. I was like, well, I guess I just have to take this level again. Yeah, so I took all the classes.
And was that improv or sketch to start off?
Thank you. Yes, improv to start off. Yes.
And who were some of your first teachers?
My very first teacher was Shuli Cohen. Oh boy, memories.
And when did you switch? Because I've known you because of improv and stuff as well, but then when I was interning at the DCT, you were kind of like on the committee of sketch. So when did you switch over to that?
So what happened was me and Holly McKee Clark, who you may know from Fancy Football, I approached her and I was like, hey, you want to do sketch? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I only want to do it if I'm on a team with you. And she was like, all right, let's just audition together. And I was like, I don't think that's a thing, but let's do it anyway.
That's awesome. So what makes IO, you've been here for a long time. Like what made you stay here and keep coming to IO West?
All the people. There's no other way to say it, but I've met one of my best friends, Holly McKee Clark here. I met my fiance, Adam Wasser here. I've met so many other just great, amazing friends and people that I work with, not just in improv and sketch, but in other things, and they're all creative. They all have a heart and a passion and a drive. And even though certain individuals, we were all butting heads, but it was but look at all the people around us.
So say what you will about Charla. She is not the best business person. She didn't really understand our community or understand how strong our community was because she was here once or twice a year. And she enjoys. I think that once you create a community of thousands and thousands of people, it's the natural progression to just have a big ego.
She looks through us through the window.
Is she there?
Yeah, she's walking this way.
That's hilarious. She's gonna try to come in here and talk to me.
Her ears are ringing.
She made a lot of mistakes, and that really sucks for our community, and it's totally unfair. At the same time, she created all of this, and I can't blame her for shutting this theater down. It's hers. She can do whatever she wants. I mean, there were so many ways for her to make this into something else rather than just end it. But that's her style. She woke up on a week and a half ago Tuesday and decided to tell us all that she was going to end this. And maybe that was, I think there are in some ways that was a smart move, because it's how are people going to put anything into a theater if they know that they've got 6 months left to run it? Or, so maybe she was planning this for a while. I don't know. I don't know what was going on, but I do know that we were all surprised, and that sucks. We've had a great week, and I think that this whole community is better for it. We're better without her, because not that I don't even know what she's like as a person. I don't really know her that well, but we are better with the community that we have and with the people who are actually here and around this comedy community. And I think that we could create a stronger, better business with people who are actually invested in the people around here, and people who understand what this means to people.
Well, so I graduated, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months ago maybe, but I've kept taking classes. So I've taken since then, half a dozen classes with teachers who I've always wanted to work with. So it depends. My first teacher was Paul Vaillancourt, and
as it is for a lot of us.
Yeah. So, and he's known as the level 1 guy, and he's also known as the Harold guy. And his enthusiasm and his dedication to the place and his love for the place, it just really rubs off. I mean, you can really see that.
Cool. And that brings us to our guest, Mr. Paul Vaillancourt. Thank you for joining us, good sir.
Thank you for having me.
So, I don't know. That I wanted that. I mean, sorry about the audio. I mean, there was a lot going on at that time, but thank you for coming on this podcast. Let's just start off with, some of the simple questions. Like, where do you come from? Like, how did you, let's start with just the very beginning of Paul. Like, where were you born?
Oh, where was I born?
Yeah.
I was born in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay. And how have you always had a theatrical background, or when did that get started?
That started really for me in high school. Like, I was a pretty shy kid. I'm still a pretty shy person, sort of introverted mostly, but I liked I just sort of, I don't know. Looking back, I don't really know how it happened because I am sort of, like I said, shy and introverted by nature. But I joined my high school drama club.
Okay.
And so I was in drama club. I was the treasurer, and then I was the president.
Whoa!
Oh yeah,
went from treasurer to president.
Yeah,
nice.
It was a pretty stellar career. And so I started doing that, and then when I was in college, I saw my first improv show.
Okay.
And
what were they called? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was called Erasable Ink.
Erasable Ink.
Like
nice.
INC, like incorporated.
Oh, okay, cool.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to University of Maryland in College Park.
Nice.
And I went to year at Cal State Northridge, and I got my master's at Northwestern.
Oh, wow.
I paid for it. I might as well say it.
Yeah, you're right.
You earned it.
Be proud of that.
But I'll say, this is a story I tell a lot, but it's my favorite story. When I saw my first improv show, it was Erasable Ink, and they were doing, it was like I had just gotten to college, and my friend, one of my first friends that I made at college, this guy, Tom Gallahan, said, hey, I'm in this improv show. Do you want to come and see it? And at this point, I didn't know what that meant. But I was like, okay, sure. And so the first half of the show was short form. And I sort of got that. Okay, that's pretty easy to understand.
Yeah.
And then the second half was a herald. And he was kind of new to the group. He was a freshman like me, but they had sort of been working for a little while, and he was sort of new to the group. But they did a herald, and and part of the herald was this guy trying to find out who made Muzak. Right? So he's like questioning, trying to find out who made music. And then towards the end, he's like, I'm going in there. And these two guys jump out as guards, like, no, you're not. He's like, yes, I am. And he pushes past these two guys. And he gets in. He's like, you guys make music? Paul McCartney and Paul Simon and John Lennon? And then the guy who was Paul McCartney spoke up. He's like, right, we usually make the music first, then jazz it up for everyone else. And I was like, like it totally blew my mind. It just like the whole thing like came together. Wow. It blew my mind. And I remember so clearly, I literally said out loud to myself, that's what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it was like being called to the priesthood. I was like, I gotta go. Wow. I gotta be in that thing. And so I knew Thomas, and so I met some of the other guys. But then I sort of went away on exchange for a year to Cal State Northridge and started doing improv really there.
Okay.
At that school. They were just starting an improv program. And I was like, I know improv. I've seen improv.
Yeah.
And so I got into that group because they were just starting it off. And that was awesome. I learned a ton about improv, and I was able to bring some of that back. And I eventually auditioned and got into Erasable Ink, and then became the director of that group.
Wow.
And then from there, just kind of followed improv. And this was a long time ago, I'll say. And so improv wasn't as big a thing as it is now. So it was like harder to find. So
sure.
I did that. And then when I graduated from college, I ended up doing some comedy sports in Virginia, because that was like really the other thing. Yeah. And then I ended up taking class with this guy who was teaching in the basement of the Department of Defense. Okay. So we would like go and sign in the Department of Defense and go in this elevator down to the basement. It's crazy. I don't even know how we found that class. Wow. But I went to that for a little while. But the great thing about that class, which was, I didn't go a ton of times, but at one class he said, oh, I'm bringing in a guest teacher from Chicago, Second City. And I was like, oh, great. And so it was Michael Gelman, who I'm a gigantic fan of, who's awesome, just super cool dude. Wow. And he taught this 2-day workshop, and sort of coincidentally to that, I knew who Michael Gelman was. This is really random. I knew who Michael Gelman was because we went to maybe one of the first college improv festivals ever at Skidmore College. Yeah. And he was the guest, the sort of keynote guy there. Okay. And so I had met him very briefly. And he had sort of said something complimentary about our Herald or whatever. And I was like, oh my God. So then when I saw him again at this, when I knew I paid to come into this workshop for 2 days. It was amazing, like mind blowing. Just like, when you first start off improv, it's like leaps and bounds. You just like learn so much so fast because you don't know anything. And so it's like you sort of learn, you just suck it up so quick. Yeah. And so at the end, I was like, I'm really, at the end of the 2 days, I said, I'm really interested in doing improv, and I'm just not sure what? He's like, well, you really want to do it? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you got to move to Chicago. I was like, you got it. And like a couple months later, I moved to Chicago.
Wow.
And I went to Northwestern and I signed up for Second City, and I was doing Second City classes and taking classes at Northwestern to get my master's in theater. And then I ended up sort of joining up and directing there. They have a big improv show at Northwestern. It's a big sort of start as there's a show at Northwestern called the WAMU Show, which is like a big fundraiser for older sort of graduates and alumni.
Okay.
And it's sort of like very mainstream and for the big.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
and then this the Meow Show, which was this show was called, was started as like a sort of counterculture sort of answer to that show, but now it's like its own institution sort of.
Okay.
And so I ended up sort of sniffing that out and sort of getting to direct that show, which is great. It was amazing because it's like super. It's a super popular show on campus, so you get tons of people auditioning. It was my first time auditioning people. I saw like hundreds of people, I think, for this show, and ended up sort of casting it. And still some great people are still my friends today. Ed Herbstman, who started the Magnet Theater, was one of the guys that I cast
Wow.
in the show. And Gene Peak, who's now on AP Bio, was also in the show.
Yes.
Adrian Wenner, who's a writer on a bunch of things, and Ethan Sandler, who was his writing partner on to other things. Abby Cohen, who's a writer and now director. It was a great. Anjali Bhamani, who's an actress and a voice for video games for I think Overwatch is the game she's in.
Oh, nice.
But a bunch of people have done awesome things. Colby Becerra, who's a music teacher. Dan Weiss, a great friend of mine, who's sort of into another part of the business. But great people that I'm still friends with today. Many of them, and so I went on to do that. And then sort of as I was wrapping up that experience, Ed Herbstman said, "You got to go to IO." You have to go to Improv, at the time, Improv Olympic. You got to go to Improv Olympic. I was
Right.
like, okay. I was like, I trust you. And
Yeah.
so I went to Improv Olympic, and I saw the family, and it was great. It was so great. It made me mad. It was like, fucking so, God damn it. That's a
Yes.
fucking good
Yes.
show. Jesus. You know, you're fucking,
We have
you
that.
leave mad, but so excited,
Yes.
so invigorated. So I saw that, and I signed up and started classes at Improv Olympic.
Wow.
At
That's
the
so
original
cool.
Chicago location?
Well, it sort of depends on what you pick as the original location. It was in Chicago, but it was upstairs of this bar that it was like on this tiny stage where there's mostly a really music venue, and they would have bands in, and so like our show would wrap up at 10 o'clock. They're like, you gotta go, you gotta go. There's a band coming in, so we would leave or whatever. So that was before the original. I guess the original, sort of what most people think of as the original location which was the Swedish Men's Club, and then before the gigantic new thing was built.
Okay,
Gotcha.
that's interesting. So I just kind of want to go back a little bit. So
Yeah,
your
yeah.
very first show, you got to see a Herald for the first time.
My very first improv show, I saw a Herald. Yeah.
Did you because I remember my first time seeing it, did you pick up on any of the pattern or the formula of it yet? Or were you just kind of like, what is this? Like, what were your first thoughts? If you can remember,
that's
the
a great
first thoughts
question.
there.
I honestly don't remember any of that stuff. I think that sort of their version of the Herald was pretty loosey goosey.
Really? Okay.
You know, so I don't know that it was like a textbook Herald per se.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of understood the scenes were coming back and stuff, and even when I think about other Heralds that we did, they were really training wheels Heralds, like really sort of the beginning of the thing, because it was like students teaching other students like before they left. So there wasn't a ton of outside influence, because there wasn't like a million improv groups in every college town, and there wasn't like small theaters, and there wasn't festivals, and there wasn't the internet.
Right, exactly.
None of that stuff.
Couldn't look it up on YouTube.
Right.
or-
So in a weird twist, the guys who started Erasable Inc. were trained by, as I understand it, they were trained by people from Yale, from Purple Crayon at Yale.
Oh,
So they were
wow.
like our sister troupe. And those guys were trained by Sharna and Dell when they were putting together the Southern Comfort sort of improv tournament. And that's sort of where the Improv Olympic idea came from. It started off sort of more as a competition, sort of closer to comedy
Okay,
sports.
right. That makes sense
And
because
so-
of the name.
Yes, exactly. And
Okay.
so Yale, Purple Crayon was trained by them, and then they sort of trained the beginning of our group, and then this just sort of passed down, so it's like you learned like there's 20 things to know, and you sort of pass on those 20 things, right? And there wasn't a ton of way to find out other stuff. You
Yeah.
know? This was before Truth and Comedy was written. It was like really early on in the process. So we taught each other, we taught ourselves, and sometimes we'd see another improv group and we'd go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And we would visit Yale sometimes and sort of hang out with those guys and see, what they were working on and what we were working on and stuff. And that kind of thing.
That's so cool. So like, what was it that, because you're still doing it today.
Yeah.
And you said you had that moment you were called to the priesthood.
Yeah, for sure.
What keeps you going with it? Because I mean, you've been doing it for quite some time. And what keeps that fire still going? What's that passion for?
Sure. I think sort of originally what I loved about it was that you bring everything you've got to it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, because you're the writer, you're the director, you're the editor, you're the actor, you're everything, So you sort of, it's like really asks everything from you. It's just you and a couple of chairs and you make everything else up. I thought that was really amazing. And it was super minimal in some ways. It doesn't require a lot. You can add things to it, of course, but it doesn't require a lot of outside stuff. A couple of chairs, really, at the most. And so that was kind of what really drew me to it at first. And what keeps me going on it is it's sort of like when I sort of first fell in love with it, it was sort of like a religion to me. Like it was like a really sort of pivotal time in my life, and I saw it as this lens, and I saw everything sort of through that lens. Yeah. And it really just affected my life in a lot of ways, where it's like, even when I would like get a job and be working on something, they're like, do you know how to do this? I'm like, yep. Yeah, I can. I'll do that.
Yeah,
and just sort of figure it out and sort of yes and that and roll with it.
Yeah,
Totally. And just sort of thinking on the fly and thinking outside the box and sort of yes anding and sort of all this kind of thing like that. That sort of approach to life, I think, was really formative for me, and that's what I sort of love about it. Yeah. And then I think also teaching has really kept me super into it, really excited about it, because I love performing for sure, and that's great, and I love that. But I also really love teaching and really love sharing what I know with other people. And one of the guys in the interviews you played said that I'm known as like the level 1 guy.
Yeah, you were my level 1 teacher, so
right. I heard that a lot in the last couple weeks. But,
is there a reason for that, or did you did you ask for that, or
I don't know. You know what? I don't know if I asked for it or just kind of happened, but it's ended up being a good match.
Okay, great.
Actually, I know kind of how it happened. Well, my first class that I taught was in Chicago when Matt Besser and the UCB were sort of like kind of coalescing. We were sort of friends and sort of mixing and doing shows and this and that together. And so when he left to go start the UCB in New York, I sort of inherited his level 3 class, which at the time was the movie and the deconstruction. And so I taught that class, which was his class, at first. And then when I opened the IO West or the IOLA out here, I was the only teacher. So when we started, the first session I taught three level 1 classes, I taught 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday, and so I was the only teacher.
Yeah,
so
it's a good thing you liked it.
yes, I loved it, and I sort of just sort of really got to love level 1, and there's a ton of things I love about level 1. Like one is that you get to, it's a great responsibility because you get to shape that person's journey moving forward. Their first impression of improv comes from you, and that's the original yardstick that they use, and they may change that later on. That's entirely possible, but you're the original yardstick that they compare everything else against, and so you want to sort of really live up to that responsibility. So you try to give them a good experience and the basic tools that they need to move forward. And then also, I think level 1 is super thrilling because you can see people improve from the beginning of a class to the end of a class.
Yeah.
Like in 3 hours, you can see someone get better, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And also I sort of like the struggle a little bit. People come in, they're like, well, I'm terrified of improv, and that's why I'm here. Or, I don't know, I've never seen an improv show, or I did it before, I had a terrible experience, but I'm giving it another try, or whatever. Yeah. Whenever someone says they had a terrible experience, I feel like that's a personal challenge to me of like, I'm going to make you fall in love with improv.
Yeah. You get to see them like come out of their shell.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a similar experience. I taught swim lessons for a couple summers, and you'd get these 5-year-old kids who wouldn't even put their face underwater, but after 2 weeks they're jumping off the diving board into your arms. So that's kind of a similar situation.
Totally.
So,
yeah, exactly. You see them sort of like take their first tentative steps and their confidence grow, and it's really gratifying to see that. So maybe that's like a selfish sort of thing of it, but I'm also a good match for it because I'm a big believer in the basics. I tell people that I don't really coach that much, but most of the teams that I coach are teams that have sort of been together for a while and kind of lost their way, and they sort of come back around and they find me somehow. And then I always go back to the basics, go back to the beginning, and that usually gets them back on track. It's not they need a cooler edit or a fancier opening. It's that they need to sort of just reconnect to the basics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm a big believer in basics. So I'm a really good match for level 1 in that respect as well. And then now I just have a bunch of experience with it. And then and the level the Herald is the same way. It is the beginning of something new. It's the beginning of the next chapter for them, because if you go by the IO sort of system, it's like intro and then character and game kind of, and then advanced scene work and then Herald. So it's like they're sort of like learning something new. And I love to be there at the beginning of things. And so that's why, and I love the Herald. And I think there's I'm a pretty good sort of communicator about the basics of what I think of the structure, what makes a good Herald.
Absolutely.
And then they can build on that and they can sort of go from there. But you just gotta have the basics first. And I love that, and I love to teach that.
Absolutely.
Now, for our audience who may not be familiar with long-form improv, how would you kind of quickly describe what a Herald is?
Oh man, yeah, very quickly.
Very quickly. Well, in a couple of words, I'll sort of say two things. One is sort of Dell's final definition of the Herald was it is an aesthetically pleasing arrangement of scenes, games, and monologues.
Nice.
Right? And I think in the biggest picture, that's kind of it. It's sort of it is a way of putting scenes together to some sort of bigger end. Like that's kind of what I think of. It's like that's really it. Once you sort of get away from the nuts and bolts of like an opening and 3 scenes and a game, what is it really about? It's putting scenes together to sort of make a sum that's bigger than the sum of its parts. You know what I'm saying?
Just like an overall structure. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun because I think I've seen in my short time of improv, I've seen well, I guess longish, shortish, but I started in high school, so it's so funny to see how many ways people have tried to explain what a herald is. Like, they draw the 3 circles and then they go line down and they do the big, yeah, it's super fun. And for those who've listened to our podcast a couple ways ago, we shared kind of the last moments of Del Close. So when he mentions Dell's the guy he's the one who created the form Herald's. I mean, he created a lot more than that, but is he the one who gets the credit for that specifically? Because I know you mentioned him.
Yeah, I think it ends up sort of being mostly him and then a little bit of Shaun is my understanding of it. Yeah, but mostly him. He was working sort of previously with the committee and sort of putting scenes together, and sort of he came out of a tradition of sort of like a Second City-ish sort of tradition where they would do scenes that were like almost like sketches, but improvised. It was like a 3-minute scene was the standard, and then he started putting scenes together and that kind of thing, and that's kind of like the real seed of it, and then the sort of codifying of what it is now, what we think of the Training Wheels Herald, came sort of later. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you're in this world. Yeah. You're teaching. I'm assuming maybe at this point, and because you said you started teaching in Chicago. When was the moment that you were kind of approached of, hey, we're actually going to take IO to Los Angeles?
Well, that's the opposite of how it happened.
Oh, okay, great.
So I had sort of a crazy story, but I was teaching and I was doing a bunch of shows, and like I was at IO like 6 or 7 nights a week. And when I wasn't there, I was like, maybe I'll go to the IO. When I wasn't there, I was thinking about maybe going there.
Yeah, it was like a cot for you.
Yeah, basically. It was, some people did sleep there for sure. That was definitely part of the thing. But it was such an exciting time. And I mean, if you think about sort of just what was going on then, Del was sort of younger and healthy and creating a ton, and he was a constant presence there. That was super exciting. The community was growing by leaps and bounds. There's a lot of super creative people there. Like Shaun was my first teacher, but then I had Matt Besser and Ian Roberts and Adam McKay.
Wow.
And Ali Farinakian was a good friend of mine. So all the guys from the family, Ali, who went on to start the Pit with Armando Diaz.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then the Armando Diaz show was just starting, and Noah Gregoropoulos was there, and the first team I ever coached was like 5 guys and Amy Poehler and Tina Fey.
Wow.
And it was like a hotbed. Like
That's
if you ever
so
read
good.
like Outliers or like one of those books about talent, it was just like a hotbed. Like it was really happening, and the more it happened, the more people came to be part of it happening.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So like it was like really, it was just like things were happening so much, so fast. It was like a really exciting, heady time.
Yeah.
And so so it was like super exciting. I got off track. What was the question again?
All right. So when did the idea for IO?
So I was doing that, and then sort of at the time in Chicago, I was kind of at the top of the food chain at IO, which was great, and I loved that. I was doing so many shows and stuff, and then I was like auditioning to get into Second City because that was like the jewel, because that was like the paying job. for improv.
Yeah.
And so I had auditioned a few times, and it just hadn't sort of happened for me or whatever. And then sort of around that same time, my group got selected to go to the HBO Aspen Comedy Festival to do improv, which was really, I think we were the second group in the history of the festival to do it.
Wow.
And so it was like super exciting, and we were doing the improvised movie. That was our form at the time.
Nice.
And so I knew I was going to go do that, and Second City just didn't seem like it was going to sort of pan out for me. So then I was like, well, do I just kind of keep banging my head against that, or so I knew that I had decided to move to LA.
Okay.
And me and the team, the tribe at the time, and then later Bitter Noah, we decided we were going to move to LA.
Okay.
Wow.
And so we were going to go to Aspen and then sort of to LA.
Wow.
And so, but I loved the community that I was in. And so I approached Sharna and I said, has anyone ever tried to buy the IO or franchise the Improv Olympic? And she said no, and it doesn't really matter because it's just a name. I mean, the important thing is the people, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny in retrospect. But so I said, well, I'm going to LA. I want to start an Improv Olympic in Los Angeles. And she's like, okay, whatever. And so
So this was your idea.
oh yeah,
Wow.
it was 100% my idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So cool.
Let history reflect.
Yes.
It was 100% my idea, and she was like, okay. And so we were sort of the co-founders of it, I guess. I was the boots on the ground guy,
Totally.
and she was like sort of the money guy, and we started it, and we just rented the space at the Stella Adler Theater, a classroom space, and put a few ads in Backstage West when that was the main way of communicating with people, and people signed up, and I was like taking calls, like whatever, like
Wow.
hardline calls. I didn't even have a cell phone, didn't even have a pager, nothing. Just
Wow.
just had to be by my phone and like wait for people to call. And so I was like, I remember at the time my girlfriend and I went to San Diego for like a getaway, a vacation or whatever. And before we went out, I had to like make like 20 calls before we could go and do anything in San Diego. I was like, I gotta do these calls. And so that's kind of how it got started.
So, and then like, sorry, so what were some of the challenges like you first had starting a theater? Because I'm sure it's going to help you with some cool things happening in the future.
Yes, I think a lot of the challenges that I faced, I think, are not as much challenges anymore. At the time, it was a really open market. There was basically the groundlings, and that's it. Like that was the only other sort of really improv game in town.
Wow.
And so when we came, it was like super open, and the tricky part was really the name. That was like the trickiest part, because I would say, oh, the Improv Olympic, and they'd say, oh, the Improv on Melrose, like the stand-up club. And I say, no, that's not it.
Oh.
We do improv comedy. So like stand-up. No, not like stand-up. And so it was a lot of sort of just really educating the general public of kind of what it is that we were doing.
Wow.
Was like the main was like the first challenge, just to get people to understand like what we're doing, and then to get down to the business of the Herald and the Armando or whatever.
Yeah.
So to get people to understand what it is that it is, and what is the product, right?
Yeah.
And so that was like the first hurdle, trying to get people to understand that. And luckily, I was starting the theater, but we all had sort of bit or no, I had moved to LA, so we were doing shows, and at first we were doing like 2 shows on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday, and we're doing like a movie and a herald,
Okay.
and then we sort of started with the Armando show, and that was amazing because that was like a lightning rod, and it's sort of like people who had sort of left LA who had left Chicago and come to LA were like, oh, well, there's improv here, whatever, and they would like just come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Dave Keckner, and that's how I met a ton of other people. Steve Carell did a few Armandos, and Nancy Walls, his wife, did a few Armandos, and just a bunch, Ian Gomez, and a bunch of people that just had come kind of out of the woodwork, that they had missed it, and they wanted to be back a part of it, and so it was great. It was really fun, and so that's kind of how it got going. But that was the original sort of hurdle, was that of like, we're not the Improv. We're doing improv, and it's Improv Olympic, and it's more scenes. It's closer to a play than it is to stand up.
Yeah.
And so it was like educating people, and also just kind of sort of technically teaching class. One of the first hurdles, I think, was that it was really all actors and not improvisers. Now there's a breed of people that are improvisers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Sort of like when MMA started, it was like boxing versus wrestling, right? But now there's MMA fighters that are all that.
Right, yeah.
So at the time, we were like improvisers teaching actors. And actors were like a specific like segment, and we were trying to sort of give them a different, and now there's improvisers, and they're just a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it was one of the technical things was trying to get people to play outside their type.
Interesting.
You know, because if you're doing a herald, if you're like a young mom type, you can't be a young mom in every scene. I suppose you could be a young mom, but why not open up a little bit? So it was like trying to challenge people to play outside their type a little bit, you know? So there's a lot of these really small, different
which I bet is good for actors. And that's kind of another thing, like, as you have taught actors, why do you think it's important for actors to take improv class? You might have already explained one, but I mean,
I think playing outside your type, I think is really good and really informative for you, because I think you become a better foil, because when you, like, let's say you're a young mom and you have to play the dad, right? So then you're playing the dad and you're like, I really wish they would give me this, or sort of respond to me in this way. So then when you sort of are back into the young mom, you remember that lesson. You're like, oh, when I was the dad, I was really hoping for this kind of thing, so I'll give that kind of thing. It's like a walk a mile in my shoes sort of a deal, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And so you sort of get a bigger sort of global vision of the scene, not just your part, but you sort of see how your part fits into the whole thing. You get a better sense of that. So I think that's really important.
True.
2, improvising is like 90% listening, right? And actors are always, I think the best actors are the best listeners. They sort of take in what's happening with their partner, and they really respond to that. And acting is reacting, they say, and that's improv in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
Like, you sort of you are really if you're really doing it, you're really reacting what's happening. You're not thinking 1 second ahead. You're not planning even a microsecond ahead. You are reacting to what just happened in the moment, the actual moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of like get to flex that muscle, because in improv, you don't have the script knowing what's going to come next. Right. You literally are reacting to what this person is saying to you. Shaun, I always like to bring this up, because Shaun didn't even know. So Shaun came out here January of last year, and he experienced his first long form show at the PAC. He didn't even know long form existed.
I knew of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Sure. Right, and that's what
I
most
think
people
that's most
know.
people's,
Yeah, but like, what was your first reactions, like, seeing that there's not just Whose Line, there's long form?
Yeah, I mean, it really made quite an impression on me as well. And then when I saw like the different concepts for it, the Resistance, how they were making action movies, and my favorite was opening night, how they were making a musical off the top of their heads. I was like, this is incredible. Yeah,
he saw it and then became this huge fan of it. And like, I loved seeing that about him, that he came to see a show that we did, and then he would just go on his own to go and find all this different improv.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think I never participated, but I think one good thing that I saw was just that team aspect where there's no judgment. You guys are all just yes-anding each other, and you're just, whatever someone adds to it, like, okay, well, that's part of the reality of this situation now, and you all just run with it. And like you guys have both said, like you said before, like you're both kind of shy guys, but I've seen you on stage, and you can't tell, like you're someone else, you know. Like it's really incredible to see people just come out of their shells, be completely comfortable, and just have that team support structure.
Yeah, it's because you see, for me, what I love about improv is the people. It's not a one person. Now you do a mono one person movie form, which blows my mind. But for me, you know, why I love it is that it's so interactive with people. You rely so much on each other, and for me, I love that. I love people, and I love getting to know people. And I feel like improv, you get to know people very well because their emotions are raw. A lot of what they're saying is 100% true, and it's like,
yeah, improv is like truth serum. Like people say things that they don't necessarily mean to say sometimes.
Yeah.
And but that's great. That's really interesting. I think that that sort of goes back to one of the things I really love about it. You bring yourself to it, and that's it. It's like, and people sometimes say, well, how do I find my voice? And I think you don't need to find your voice. I think you just need to sort of work on your technique. And once your technique reaches a certain level, then it allows you to express your voice. And when the technique becomes sort of frictionless, then your voice comes through automatically. Because when you're learning, you're sort of like, you're working the technique, and that, you know, there's distortion through the technique. You sort of end up doing sort of like when you're learning a language, right? I know how to say these few things, so it seems like I'm obsessed with food because all I need to know how to talk about is food or whatever, right? Yeah. But once I become fluent in the language, then you know who I really am. I can say anything I want.
Yeah,
you know? And that's how it is. And I tell people all the time that improv is a medium like paint. And once you learn how to mix paint and apply it to the canvas, then you can paint anything you want. You just need to master those basic aspects, and then you can sort of use that medium to express whatever it is that's on your mind. That's when your real artistic voice, I think, comes through. When the craft, because anyone can learn the craft, and the next level is taking it to an art.
Absolutely.
You know
oh, that's awesome. That's beautiful.
How long ago was it that you moved to LA and were trying to open the theater? When was that?
20 some odd years.
Wow. Because it's still like
20 years.
Such kind of a new type of thing, but it very quickly became like a staple. Like they were saying in the interviews that you did, someone said that they want to see it on your resume if you're an actor. Like it's now like a must. So it's pretty crazy.
A couple years after we got here, it started to really sort of come into the greater consciousness, and we started getting these. I started hearing this more in level 1. My agent told me to come and take a class. So I think that was an interesting sort of change in the market and in the community, because, you know, and then we started seeing it in movies, then it became more important and stuff like that. So it's just like anything else. I think you just need it as like one of your skills, you know, like accents or whatever you have, you know, I know method or on camera technique. They want to see improv that you have all the different all these different skills, you know. It just makes you a well-rounded person and performer and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, and person we'll get to in a second. So let's just try and get this into a full circle here. So then you started IO, you're doing your thing. How long was it until you kind of, because now when I met you, you know, you became more of a teacher and more focused on teaching. When was that, and when did you decide to more focus on that?
Yeah, when I first went and started the IO, I ran it for a couple of years, the first couple of years. And then it was just, it was really just like an economic decision. Like it was so much work for the amount that I was getting paid.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. She's like, okay. And so then I was really quick. I was like, you don't even want to try to keep me on? Okay, whatever. But I was still so in love with it. So I kept teaching and you know, performing and that kind of stuff. Like I was sort of relieved to be out of that role. You know, I was sort of conflicted. I loved it, and obviously I wish that, you know, they'd said, well, hey, we'll give you a raise.
Yeah, right, for sure.
But you know, it was what it was. But I think it all kind of shakes out the way that it shakes out for a reason. And but I stuck around teaching, and so I just taught for a long time and did shows and had a few different groups along the way. And you know, I was in the musical group at the very beginning, and then I was like, "Oh no, you guys are really gonna sing? Never mind." I'm a okay like improv singer, but like once it gets down to like those guys are real singers, like it's like
great.
ridiculous.
Yeah. With that, real quick, can I bring up one of my favorite teams? So how did you get involved with? I think it was a little bit later, but how did you get involved with Beer Shark Mice? because
Oh.
that is my. I'm gonna be stroking your ego here, but that is my number one favorite team. Like back in little old Utah, when we would meet in my living room and we're like studying improv. I had a DVD that came with Art by Committee, I think, and it had like a Beer Shark Mice and a few other ones, and like that's what I would show people to be like, this is how improv, this is like it. So like, how did you get involved with them?
I joined the team.
Yes, but how did you get there?
Well, when the team first started, there was another guy named Pat McCartney who was on the team, and he moved. He moved to New York to follow his fortunes in New York, and so they were short-handed, and so they asked me to sit in. I sat in, and I sat in a couple more, and sat in a couple more, and then I kind of became the regular sit-in guy. And then just like happens with so much stuff that I've dealt with these guys, at one point, I think it was Pete. He's like, you're on the team, right? Just show up. And I was like, okay, man, you got it. So I would just instead of them calling me I would just start showing up, and then that was it. But it sort of was. It's funny because it was kind of like a throwback to like my real big break in improv was when I was in Chicago, and the Family, which was like the unquestioned sort of probably the best team in the world on the planet at the time, was just all crazy heavy hitters. And did you know the Family?
Oh, I've heard of them. Obviously, I haven't really got to see, unfortunately, but
they're great. But we should do the roster.
Hit them.
Matt Besser and Ian Roberts, who went on to start the UCB, Ali Faranakian, who went on to start the Pit, Adam McKay, who went on to win an Oscar, Pete Holney, who's worked a ton, a guy who you may have seen on TV once or twice, Neil Flynn, just amazing, amazing. Oh, I forgot anyway, but just amazing, just all crazy great guy, and just like crushing it every night. And so. But as things do, they change. And so some of those guys started to get into second. Oh, and also Miles Stroth. I should say that. Miles Stroth. Yeah. I think of Miles as I worked with Miles in other capacities. So it's not the first thing I think of. Yes. But also Miles was an important, integral part of that team as well.
Wow.
And so, some of those people started to get into Second City and sort of do other things. And so once again, this is like the first thing. They were shorthanded. And so one night, I'm in my studio apartment, and I get a call from Shaun at like 4:00 in the afternoon. Hey, Beer Shark Mice, not Beer Shark, the Family is shorthanded. Do you want to sit in with them?
No.
And I was like, yes. It was insane.
That's
because
so
it was
cool.
It was like Little League being called up to play for the majors. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, I show up, and I don't know if she had talked to them or not, and I was like. Hey, I had a tie up. So I was like, hey, I'm here for the show. And oh, okay. All right, whatever. And then I did okay, and they kept asking me back, so I did that for a while. And that was like really my big break, because then that was like really just a real, a once in a lifetime opportunity to just sort of jump from the main sort of group of improvisers into this. To rub shoulders with these guys who were the elite. So that was like really my big breakthrough, and that led to me inheriting my Matt Besser's class and like all this kind of stuff. And so that was really my big break. And then sort of it's happened similarly with Beer Shark Mice. They were shorthanded, and I think one of the things I can do as an improviser is I can play the way that you play. Right.
Okay.
So I'd seen the show a few different times, and I knew the way they wanted to do it, and I was like, I'll do it that way.
Okay.
And I bring my own sort of spin to it, but it's not like two different styles. Like I'll play in your style. And cool. Use my voice in that style. So so that was it. So that's how I hooked up with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so
that was
cool.
like years ago. And it's so funny because I'm still like the new guy. They're like, hey, new guy, whatever.
Wow, that's so awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, we're gonna come back around here. Don't worry, because I know some of you who are listening to this are like, but wait, you're talking about the thing that happened a couple weeks ago. We'll get to that because you guys asked us a lot of questions. But we're gonna take a short little break. We're gonna play some fun, our normal segments with Paul, if you don't mind joining us on these segments.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's see. Do we have time for all of them, or should we just do the one? I think we can just do the one. I think. Because we're pretty far in there.
Which part?
Let's do Don't You Dare Laugh is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys know this segment if you're listening to. We're going to play some clips. Yeah. Trent, here it comes.
Don't you dare laugh. I mean it.
Okay.
Awesome. Shaun, take it away.
All right. So Watson and I we each brought a few funny clips. We're just gonna try and make the other person laugh with them. It's just a fun little segment that we enjoy doing.
We hope we can make you laugh, Paul, as well.
Feel free to laugh.
That's great.
These are just silly videos off the internet, so it's kind of funny to show these to, one of your improv heroes. We're just going to watch funny videos.
I went first last time.
You did, so I'll go first.
Do I watch?
Yes,
Okay.
you can watch here and you can listen here however you want. Yeah, so my first clip is very fast, so you got to pay real close attention. So it's really snowy and a news reporter is out, and yeah, it's better if we just go in. Let's go in.
We're told to stay off roadways unless absolutely, positively necessary.
I wanted donuts.
But they still can't.
Wait, what? That was our
Watch
interview?
it again. Watch it again.
Oh, there's
Let it
something else
soak
we're
in.
looking for?
No. It's what you need. Uh-oh. We're done for.
No, we got it.
You really hated that clip, I guess.
We're told to stay off roadways unless absolutely, positively necessary.
I wanted donuts.
But they still can't.
No, I caught that. But that's her interview?
That's it. No, that's what's funny about it. The police said you absolutely cannot go out there, and she said I wanted donuts, so she wanted to go out there. Okay, I'm coming out at a very low. Okay. Jeez. Okay, fine, guys.
So this one is a couple telling their two sons that they're having another baby.
Okay.
And so they're just talking about it.
All right.
We're going to go look at baby in mommy's tummy tomorrow. Are we going to find out if you're going to have a baby brother or a baby sister? Sister. You want a sister?
You want a sister? What do you want, Eli?
Boy.
You want a boy? What do you think it's going to be?
Kids always get me.
White.
Oh my gosh.
Can you hear it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
This is so cute. You always get. Do you have two kids? That's cheating. You have a baby. You have a kid.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're always good with these kid videos.
There's a lot of funny kid clips.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, this one I don't even remember.
All right.
But we're just gonna go
Get
for
into
it. Oh.
Happy birthday, Raven!
I'm doing all these quick videos. I'm trying a new attempt because my long videos weren't getting you, and so I'm trying this. So you gotta listen real closely.
Happy birthday, Raven!
I can't swim.
I can't swim.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's just set up so timed so perfectly. It's just 7 seconds of. I died at that video. Okay, thought it was a good one. Man, I'm striking out. You only laughed when I explained it.
Well, I'm like missing them.
Oh, gotcha. Tip number 1: I'll definitely make it a little longer. How are you handling this? You doing okay? Okay.
Okay, so I just typed in kids swearing, and so this is a kid.
I
having...
might need your headphones for this one. I heard the other one really well, but this one I'm worried about.
What did you say to me before? Why did you have to stop?
Because I had to take a shit.
Oh, what?
I had to take a shit.
Oh,
where
your
did
shirt is so great, though.
I had to take a shit.
Oh, the finger comes out.
That's not funny. Mom.
Sorry, buddy.
I had to take a shit.
Oh,
Someone take him to the bathroom.
I know.
I had to take a shit.
Oh my god.
I don't know why that was funny. To me.
That is a great one. Yeah, kids swearing are always great. Do you ever got in trouble for swearing when you were a kid?
Yeah, because we both come from Mormon families,
Right.
so yeah. And I was pretty good at not swearing, so.
Yeah. Have you have kids, right? I mean, I bought Girl Scout cookies for your kids.
For my daughter.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten in trouble for, like, what were some of their first words, or did they ever get like that?
My my kid's first words, my daughter's first word was doggy, which is like random, and then like didn't say another word for like a week. And then my son's first word was mama, of course.
Aww.
And but they don't really swear. They're sort of like kind of just warming up to it, and they're like they're trying to figure out what's the swear. Like, can we say frickin'? Can we say? I was like, I prefer you not, but which is crazy because I swear all the time, and my daughter will say inappropriate, not for kids, or whatever. We're listening to songs and they like swear words in them. She's like, this is not for kids at all. You know?
That's nice.
So we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
That's so cute. Okay, we only have two more left
for each of us.
Yes. Okay, so let me think. Yeah, this one I'm hoping. This is the one that's, I always try and get. This one's longer. Okay, so this will help.
Ending strong.
Yeah, this is hopefully ending strong. Let's hear it. I don't want to set it up because I set it up too much last time.
Hey, come look at the site.
Oh, cool. Can you download the Foo Fighters?
Yeah. Hold on. What'd I do? You know it's illegal. Download copyrighted music. I'm taking you in.
Just got a stapler in his hand.
Pay for music, never legally download.
Nice.
Lesson learned. So, and just so you guys know who's listening, that audio wasn't our fault. That's their audio. That's their audio on it. So
it was like a couple of high school kids trying to make a commercial about not downloading
I think it's
music.
from Australia.
Oh, okay.
And they have like the set built, and like a guy comes in and kicks in the door, and like I love how she's like, "Can you download the Foo Fighters?" Yeah, stapler is a gun. Oh yeah, see, improv at its greatest.
All right, I'm trying to end strong as well.
Okay.
So this girl comes out to her grandma, who's like 90, and so grandma doesn't understand that kind of relationship, so she's trying to wrap her head around it.
Okay. Oh no.
All right, I don't just kiss her, yes, but I'm not gonna talk about it.
Cause you kiss her whole.
Grandma, I don't kiss her whole.
She kisses yours.
No.
She kisses your tits.
Oh my god.
I never heard of this. If a woman touched my tits, I'd slap her in the face.
Oh, Grandma, you gotta understand. That's not what it's all about. Man, so you always go with the old people or the young people? That's what you go with.
That's actually a pretty good strategy.
Yeah,
there's a plethora of those things. So.
Yeah. Well, remember, guys, we always post in the description these videos so you can watch with us. You can also feel free to send us some of them at our website. Whoa, we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves. But at our Twitter at TDLA Podcast, as well as on Instagram, or send to us an email at tdlapodcast@gmail.com.
Sweet.
So, all right, that was a good little palate cleanser for a second.
Thank you for going on that ride with us.
Yes.
Sure, thanks for having me.
We're sitting here talking about, live improv, so good, and then we hit you with some of these.
Take a shade.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we posted on our social media that we were going to have you and for people to send in questions, and we got some good ones. So.
Okay.
Yeah. We got quite a bit. So we'll try and sorry everybody, we'll try and get through as many of these as possible. And also I just want to say, me and, we all three, we've talked beforehand, like a lot of people have a lot of different emotions during this time. We're trying to make this a very positive, because that's really what this should be. This is a very positive experience. A lot of us feel lost, like, me, that was my home theater, but there's been a lot of great theaters that have reached out and stuff. So just keep that in mind, that if you're here to look for us bashing certain people, that's not why we're here for today at this podcast.
This is a phoenix situation. We will rise from the ashes.
Yeah. Right. But okay. Having said that, we'll start with, we kind of already answered this one with about your favorite things. So let's go to, tell us about your worst show that you can remember.
Oh, sure. When I was in college, but this is like a great show because it really strengthens me as an improv. I think you learn a lot more from your bad shows than your good shows.
Absolutely.
Yes. But someone in our college improv group was involved with a homeless shelter. And so we went to do a show at this homeless shelter. Okay, that sounds like fair, right? So we go to this show at a homeless shelter, and we're doing our show. And I guess they were going to show North by Northwest after us, right? So as we're doing our show, we're like improvising our hearts out. We're doing it, and people kept saying, "When's the movie? Show the movie!" come on now. They were like, it was like walking away. I was like, homeless people have something better to do than watch our stupid show. It's like, oh my gosh, that was one terrible show. And then also, I'll say another one in college as well. We were, the Pan-Hellenic Council, which is like the fraternity and sorority sort of over body or whatever, asked us to come and sort of host this big thing that sort of like was sketches like that the fraternities and sororities did. And so we're like, okay, great. This sounds like up our alley. So we went there, but it's in this like gigantic room. No one can hear us. We're not wearing letters or anything.
Okay.
They booed us off the stage every single time we came on.
No.
It was amazing. It was like being in a Thunderdome. Every time we'd come out, they're like,
no,
because they all knew the game. The game was that you would sort of amusement park style, tape all your music and dialogue, and then blast it through the speakers and lip sync along.
Okay.
We didn't know that, so we were trying to project over like.
Oh no!
It was terrible.
Oh,
it was amazing.
man.
It was amazing. 2 terrible shows.
Well, see, and even the greats have terrible shows.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. But I was telling someone last night. That's what's thrilling about improv. Improv is a crapshoot. I don't care if you've been doing it a day or 10 years. Like it can always go south. There's always that possibility. Hopefully, that possibility goes down as you do it longer.
Sure.
But you never know.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting about it. Is like you're really finding out.
Yeah.
Every single time.
And it's okay to have those uncomfortable situations. You grow from that. So.
100%. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. I know you said already that you're kind of in this phase of like you're still trying to figure out what's going on with your theater, which is called what?
Revolution Theater.
Oh, we're really excited over here. Do you have a hope or vision for your new theater or a direction that you hope to go with this theater?
Yeah, I mean, like artistically.
I think so.
Yeah. So artistically, I think sort of, when I found out that the iOS was closing down, I was sort of trying to take the situation in and think, well, what does this mean moving forward, right? And it's been really amazing, like the how the community sort of and the sort of ripples of the community have reached out, because Miles and Brian who run the pack, Miles was at basically one of my teachers at IO in Chicago. So it's sort of like IO reaching out to IO across time, And Brian as well was in my level 1 class years ago.
Wow.
And Nick Armstrong, who's the artistic director of was also in my class, you know. So it's like IO sort of reaching out to just the whole community is like one big community. It's been the outpouring and Impro and a few other theaters I think have sort of come on the scene to offer sort of help for the students. And so I was thinking, well, is that gonna be what it is? But then the thing that this sort of moved me to want to start something new was, I think that there is an important voice that we represent, which is relationship based, game driven 2-person scenes. Like that idea of like relationship based improv is, I think, super important to me. It's what I love to watch.
Yes.
It's what I love to do. And that's kind of what I want to preserve and put out there. It's a little bit more of an actorly approach to improv. And I think that it sort of really easily translates to the work of an actor, Yeah. And so I think that is important, and it makes you... I think that voice, I didn't want that voice to disappear from the conversation, because every theater has their own perspective, and I think that's super important. I think that's really interesting, but I think that none of the other theaters have that voice represented, and so I sort of want to keep that going. I want to make a theater that is a safe artistic space for people to come and learn and to perform. And I mean safe in a lot of ways, artistically, and also sort of, I know there's been a lot of controversy of sort of sexual harassment and stuff in theaters, and I want to just sort of, a lot of theaters that have existed for a while are trying to retrofit and go back and sort of fix a problem in the system, and I think I'm in a unique opportunity unique position to sort of bake that into the DNA of the theater and really have that as one of our core values, and then as well, I think diversity. I'd really love to really make a strong, diverse community. And I think, again, I think a lot of theaters, IO included, we're trying to sort of retrofit and work backwards And I sort of want to sort of have that again baked into the DNA of Revolution, and sort of start with that as one of our core values as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's so great. I think you're absolutely right with that. And that's so cool. I'm so excited. Yeah, that gets really excited. So, and you mentioned the two. Are you saying you want to focus on 2-person improv? Like,
well, I think no. I think that the atomic building block of long form improv is the 2-person scene.
Okay,
and so it's a kind of 2-person scene, a relationship based, game driven 2-person scene. That's what I believe in, and I think that's what I sort of want to keep in the conversation.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that's sort of the starting point. And then from there, the signature form of the Herald or the improvised movie or musical or whatever, I think builds off those things of relationship. And that's what I want to sort of emphasize and keep working on.
Awesome. Real cool. Will there be, do you think at any point would it probably maybe in the future, digital classes?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I mean, right before all this happened, I was sort of working on the idea of a class for improv for TV and film. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle because, again, it's sort of more sought after in TV and film, and I don't think there's a class that specifically teaches that.
No.
So I'm sort of working on that curriculum, and people sort of have up to now had to find a way to sort of work it in. And I think there are some lessons that we can sort of impart to make that sort of translation from stage to screen a little bit more effective and a little bit more powerful. So I'm definitely working on that idea. And then, I think that I would love to sort of figure out a way. I think this has been sort of like the philosopher's stone of improv is like, is there a way to sort of capture it for transmission?
Yeah,
because it's a little bit tricky because you guys know you watch a video of an improv show and there's just like this sort of ineffable something that's not there yet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I definitely would love to sort of work on that problem and see if there's a way that we can sort of figure that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is so exciting. That's cool stuff. Okay, let's see. There's a few of these that I hope you don't mind, we've answered throughout. So I think I'm just going to kind of skip through a few of these. This is an interesting.
Can I just say one
yes.
thing?
Go
back
ahead.
to the first question.
Yes.
In terms of what do I want to create? I just want to sort of, I think sort of something I wrestled with is this idea is that I don't want to create iOS 2.0.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to try to learn the lessons that we didn't learn or couldn't learn from that first endeavor and really start something new. And like I said, bake in a bunch of these really important core values from the beginning and create something better, not just recreate, but create this new community, hopefully to sort of give that existing community a home, but in this new thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think sort of to work backwards and to try to just like to reassemble iOS, I don't think is a productive endeavor. I think there's flaws in that, and I want to hopefully learn those lessons and move forward and create this new thing that sort of builds on the shoulders of that, but isn't just a recreation of that, a reboot of that.
Awesome.
Idea, you know,
I think that sounds way more exciting.
I think that's super important because I really grapple with that idea because I am definitely sort of reaching out to that community. But what I want to say is let's do this new thing.
Yes.
Not let's recreate this old thing, you know?
Yes.
Right. Absolutely.
I think that's super important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This is so great. I'm glad we're capturing all this.
History will tell.
Exactly. Okay, so I find this very interesting, and maybe this will kind of come up with like maybe what you're looking for in teachers. But someone sent in, improv teachers rarely trained in how to teach. Just because someone is good at a skill does not mean they're good at teaching it. What's the best way for an improv company to regulate the quality of their of teachers?
Great.
That's interesting.
I think apprenticeship is the best way.
Okay.
That I know a few times I've had teachers or people who want to be teachers sit in on my class to see kind of what I do or how I do it. But I think that's like a skill to be taught as well as anything. Because I 100% agree that someone who's good at something isn't necessarily a great teacher of that. I totally think that's true. And I think like apprenticing with someone is for a session or two is really important. And I think on the times I've had someone sitting in my class, I would teach my class, and then afterwards I would say, okay, are there any questions, or like, what did you think about that? And they would say, well, when you do this, and they ask questions that if they weren't apprenticing, they wouldn't, even if they had a syllabus or whatever, they wouldn't be able to ask those pragmatic questions that only come up when you're teaching.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And so I think that's really important, because then you sort of can sort of pass down not just the rote lessons, but the mastery. You have a chance to pass down that mastery from generation to generation. I think that's really important. And so, there's a bunch of teachers I hope to sort of recruit back from the pre-existing community, but moving forward, I want to have new teachers and sort of that kind of thing. And I definitely believe in or want to institute an apprentice sort of system, or sort of a shadowing system, where they kind of can learn from those teachers who are doing it great.
That's awesome.
I
that's really smart.
I think that's important. I think that's really important, because you want to give people a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to give people a great experience, and you also want to give people an opportunity to grow into different roles. So I think that strikes the balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my opinion.
Great. Yeah, right on the dot, man. Okay. We kind of talked about this with like, you were hoping maybe like filming, or like trying to figure out how to break that barrier of like that experience. Someone also asks, as the world evolves, improv should evolve with it. What role do you feel technology will play in improv?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think that
or does technology, because we kind of talk about like when you watch it, it's different from being there. Is technology actually hindering improv?
Yeah, I don't know. As I said sort of earlier, I think sort of what I love about improv is the minimal nature of it. It's like very simple. It's really very tribal when you get down to it, because you just need a couple of chairs and then some people and a dark room, and then you sort of start doing it. You know what I'm saying? And that's really great about it. I think that technology will sort of find its way in there, like whether it's distribution or whether it's like multimedia sort of a thing. I feel like that's all, I don't know if that'll really, I think that'll just maybe change the way we consume it or the way that we distribute it. But I really, at this point, I have to say, I don't really think it's going to change improv.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to change things around it.
Yeah.
Consumption, distribution, whatever. But at its heart, it really is that relationship-based two-person scene.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any technology that's going to change that until we start improvising with robots. I'm all about it.
Yeah. Well, one thought I've been having is like, I've been doing a lot of work with like Soul Pancake and Super Deluxe, where they do these live streams where fans can interact with their live streams. So I wonder if maybe someday in the future there's a way that improv can be done in that sense, because that's technically what they're doing, because a lot of these people don't do something unless there's a suggestion from the viewing audience, and the audience eats it up because they're contributing to the show.
Sure.
Whether it's, you know this on Facebook, like we were talking to Janine a couple episodes ago, and they actually do voting system where if you do a thumbs up or a heart or a sad face or an angry face, they tally up the votes, and that's where things go. I wonder if there's some way in the future that could be implemented or something like that, because that could be pretty cool if an audience can understand it.
I totally think that's cool, but I will come back to my point.
Yes.
I think that's all frosting.
The
cake is baked. You know what I'm
yes.
saying? The cake is what the cake is, and that's all great. Let's do improv on the moon or whatever. Let's do it in zero gravity. All that's great, but at its heart, it doesn't change improv.
Absolutely.
Like I've done some. A friend of mine, Kevin Riome, in Chicago, did these videos on YouTube. Was basically FaceTime, where I did an improv scene with my friend Ed Hirschman. He was in New York and I was in LA, but he held two phones facing each other, so we were improvising over FaceTime with each other.
Wow.
Right? And that's great. That's technology. That's sort of, we're interacting through technology. They're capturing it through technology, but it comes back down to relationship-based.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really the thing. And
back to the basics, like you were saying 100%, at the beginning.
And we can sort of display that in a bunch of different ways, and we can capture it and distribute it and consume it and dress it up. But honestly, in the final analysis, unless that's there, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's just not gonna catch on. So I'm all in favor. Let's do everything we can to distribute it and consume it in different ways. And we're moving forward. And I love interacting with the audience like in real time. I think that's super interesting. And there's a bunch of shows built on that kind of idea of like you're in this event with like Tony and Tina's Wedding is a super famous one. Like they have beats, but it's like you're sort of interacting with the audience the whole time. It's like an interactive experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are all these different ways to dress it up. But back to the exact question was, do I think it's going to change improv? I don't.
Gotcha. Beautiful. Okay. So our final question for you, two final questions for you.
Okay.
Is what are your thoughts and feelings about IO West and its closing?
I think it's sort of a mixed bag of emotions, really. I mean, when I first heard that it was closing, I was really sad. I mean, I cried about it, and just even talking about it now, I'm getting sort of emotional.
No, you're good.
But it's something that I started, something I felt very proud about, very proud of, and just, I was talking to some of the guys in Beer Shark Mice, whatever, and they sort of felt somewhat I felt, which was like, I'm not there as much, especially this year. I had other family stuff going on, and I haven't been there that much, but I love knowing that it's there. And I just love the community, and like some was saying in the interviews that they met their husband or their wife there, their best friend there. And I think that's really a really strength of the community. When I, like, going back to my own story, when I wanted to start the IO in LA, it's not because I wanted to be a small business owner. It's because I wanted that community. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. I wanted to go to LA but still have that great community. And that community, I just sort of got the ball rolling, but that community built itself. And it's like, it's so great. It's so supportive, and people like really, coming to see each other's shows and collaborating on different things. And, it's just really, it's really great. And so when that was the part that I was, because I know the shows will find homes, and the players will find homes and all that stuff. I didn't think people were just wandering the streets like, we'll improvise for food or whatever. But I just was sad that community that I love so much was going to disband. And so that kind of, I thought, that feeling plus my feeling about the part of the conversation that I believe in, that I didn't want to lose, like that sort of was really what kind of led me towards this idea of Revolution Theater. So that's the sad part, but the great opportunity part was when I heard that it closed. I thought, well, that's going to be a great opportunity for the community, because as I said, I think that the IO was flawed in some ways, systemically flawed. That couldn't be addressed as an existing entity, and so to explode that thing and to sort of to burn that down really gives it the chance to sort of like you said, the phoenix. Like that phoenix doesn't come out of something. It comes out of total destruction. And so I feel like that's an exciting time, and maybe people will go to other communities that they may not have checked out before, and they'll be awesomely happy there. Or maybe they'll, you know what, I always wanted to make a movie, and now that I'm not improvising all the time, I'm going to make a movie or whatever. It's sort of like it frees people from the easy choice or the default choice to make choices.
Yes.
And I hope that some of those people will choose to come on this journey of Revolution Theater and sort of love improv and embrace improv in this new way. And whatever way I can help them sort of get to the next thing that they're going to do, I want to help them, as so many people have reached out to offer help to me. But I think it's great. I think that I am a big fan of endings and beginnings. I think it's always so exciting. Like whenever someone's like, I'm moving, I'm like, really? Where? When? How? Because it reminds us that we're not trees rooted in the soil. We can move and change our lives and go on to something else anytime we want. But sometimes it takes a big cataclysm like this, or like, oh, my building got sold, now I gotta move, whatever. And then suddenly you move, and you move in next door to this person, you fall in love and you get married, or you meet your best friend because you gotta get a roommate on Craigslist or whatever. But it just reminds us how much control we have of our own lives and of our own destiny.
Yeah.
And that's kind of partly for me what I'm doing is I want to take control of my own destiny, and I want to sort of to steer this little piece of the ship as much as I can, and try to give people that community and that be the Cupid that sort of like helps people fall in love with improv as I have.
Yes.
Share my love for it.
Yes.
You know,
That's awesome.
That's kind of where I'm coming from. And so it was a mixed bag of emotions, like excitement and sadness and just feeling unmoored in the world. Cause I always had this thing. When I came out, this thing and I grew up together in LA, you know, and then for it to not exist anymore was very unsettling. So it's a lot of different emotions, really.
Yeah. You know, two things with that, man. Number one, add us to that list to help you out if you ever need anything. So
the community has been effusively enthusiastic about helping. So I really just wanted to give a shout out and thanks to everyone who has messaged me privately or posted on the Facebook page or whatever. It really does mean the world to me that people have faith in me, and I don't take that lightly, and I want to sort of make the most of it for everybody.
yeah, and see, that's the thing is, like, we know it. Like, we know that you mean, because we've taken classes with you, like, we have this trust in you, you know, already. So, like, you know, me, I'm so excited because I trust you. I know who you are. You had me, you know, at level 1, and, you know, you've seen me at my worst as far as improv goes. I don't know if you've seen me at my best yet, but you're still here at this podcast. So hopefully, you know, it was okay. But
I've had a great time.
Great. Thank you. And, like, you know, another thing about with those interviews that you brought up is, like, when people were talking about, like, what they loved about the theater, they didn't say the drapes, or they didn't say the carpet. They said the people. And those people are still around. Like you were saying, they're not rooted. They're still going to be around. And, you know, I hope that I see a lot of familiar faces where you end up going. And yeah, it's people who create a community, not a building. And I think that's
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
100%. Nobody said, oh, the stairs or the stage
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like where we spend our time, the classrooms, they didn't say any of that stuff. It always comes down to the people.
Yeah.
The community grew, I think, the community grew in spite of those things.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, man, I mean, we wish we could go on. We could just keep going. The Oscars are happening right now. So unfortunately, you know, we need to wind down a little bit. But honestly, like, this was a little more serious show, but we love that stuff. We don't shy away from that here. Two Dudes in LA. We just want to say thank you so much to Paul.
Yes.
Sean, I love you. Okay, that's what happened. I feel like I feel like Captain America. We're gonna, you know, we're just gonna be superheroes in our own worlds.
I love you too, man. And Paul, thank you so much. This was one of my favorite episodes so
Awesome,
far.
man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I really had a great time.
Yes,
I feel very grateful that we were able to kind of immortalize this moment in, like, improv history.
Yeah.
So,
It was good timing. I think I was really when I remembered that this was coming up and I sort of have it on my calendar and stuff, I was like, wow, they're gonna get
I know.
a lot of stuff that's like on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
It's like stuff I've never talked about before, that never existed before. It's very
and like we asked you, well, like we were going, literally we had like an email drafted up or a message drafted up like a week before the news hit, and then we were like, oh, maybe this isn't a great time. So then we waited a little bit, and hopefully it was okay. But thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, sure.
So real quick, what we want to do is we want to shout out to Patrick Coffin, who makes all our intros and our segments. We want to thank you all for listening. Please feel free to follow us on social media, TDLA Podcast. We have a new episode every Monday. That's Instagram, Twitter. You can send us a question anytime.
And we're now on Google Play.
Yes, we
for
are
our
now on
Android
Google
users.
Play for our Android users, so please tell your friends. But we want to do, you know, we usually end on like, we usually share like a segment or you know, like a funny review or something like that. But we thought it would be more of a great send off because, like you were saying, we're looking to the future now. So what I would like to do as our final question is, where can people follow for your journey for Revolutionary Theater, and what are maybe some of your last thoughts or advice to people who are, whoa, easy
Maybe
there,
feeling
Watson?
lost,
Yeah, I know. I
or-
kind of feel choke up a little bit, but who do feel lost, or like where's a good place to find refuge? What are some advice for those improvisers?
That's great. That's a great question. I'll answer the second part first. I think if you're feeling lost or sort of, you know, where do I go? You know, I just know that I'm working day and night on nailing down some classroom space and some performance space and just a sort of a place for us to call home, at least for some time. But also just remember that, you know, going to the PAC or going to the West Side or whatever, that's all still the IO community. Those founders are IO people, and they sort of come from that thing, and I know those guys, and they're really, warm, and even if you don't, if you want to take classes there, you just want to see some shows or sort of see something that's kind of, familiar, that smells like home a little bit. I mean, go and check it out. And also, I'll say this, I mean, also just take some time to just sort of look up and look around a little bit, for someone who's painfully obsessed with improv, like, especially when I first started, it was like, I couldn't get it into my system fast enough. But I think sort of, as I said, what we bring to it is ourselves. And so it can't hurt to enrich ourselves a little bit. You know, you have a few weeks off without classes or shows, or you're still figuring out, like, do something else. Take a new kind of class. Go see a movie. Go on a hike. Like, talk to your friends. Like, whatever. But just like, feed the machine a little bit. Practice that instrument that you put aside when you started improvising, or read that book that you've been meaning to read, but you keep going to improv shows every night or whatever. Enrich yourself, and because then you have more to bring to the equation. The world is amazing and fantastic. We just need to sort of look up and look around, and I think that sort of big changes like this give us the reminder, like, hey, and then I think that's sort of it. And if you really you can message me. I'll talk to you. I'll help however I can. For sure. And because I totally identify with that feeling. I think that's one of the reasons that I love teaching level 1 is I remember being in level 1. I remember what it felt like, and that always drives me forward when I'm teaching.
Awesome. And then where can we follow you?
And where can you follow me? You can follow me personally on What's Up with PV, P like Paul, V like Vaillancourt. What's Up with PV on most of the socials, or you can check out the improv tips that I've done on PV Improv on YouTube. That's P as in Paul, V as in Vaillancourt, Improv, PV Improv on YouTube. There's over 100 improv tips from me and some other great improvisers that I think are a fantastic resource for people maybe in this in-between time. And then if you want to follow the journey of Revolution Theater, it's Revolution Theater on Instagram, it's Revolution Theater on Facebook, it's Revolution Impro on Twitter, and like that. And I would love to have you guys along on the journey. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. And maybe there's a second installment where we're up and running.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
Audience, let's give Paul a round of applause here.
Yes. Oh, we forgot to mention, this is our live studio audience.
Oh, live studio audience.
Might have seen him when you came in.
Great. Well, I can't thank you enough, Paul. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. And we'll make sure to post all those links for your stuff in the podcast.
We'll put them up as well.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.